Hello, everybody. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. We're just going to wait for the rest of the folks who have signed up to join us. So we gave them until 10 a.m. So we'll do that and be back with you soon. All right, it is 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If I can make my screen advance, there we go. Good morning, I'm Angela Barger, the Environmental Stewardship Initiative Program Manager, and I want to welcome you to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's ESI Environmental Benchmarking Series. Today we'll be hearing about landfill reduction efforts at DOMTAR Paper Company in Plymouth. As always, we need to be sure to thank our partners at the Land of Sky Regional Council and the Waste Reduction Partners. WRP is a 20-year-old pollution prevention program that utilizes retired scientists and engineers to provide customized on-site technical assistance. That includes waste, water, and energy audits, as well as assistance in specific projects in those fields. So if you need some assistance there, please reach out and let us know, and we can connect you with them. I have a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have audio issues and you're using audio through your computer, you can switch to your telephone. You just have to go to that audio tab in the webinar controls box and click the phone. And there'll be a phone number and a code that will pop up for you to use. If you can't find it through the tab there, then you can look in your webinar invite or that reminder email that you received. That phone number and code are in those as well. We are recording today's session, and we will post those recordings and copies of the slides to our ESI events page. So if anyone registered, you should get a reminder that that has happened. All right. We currently have everyone muted, and that just helps us to prevent feedback and eliminate unintended background noise. Therefore, we're going to ask you to submit any questions you might have through the questions function on the control panel. If you need to add clarification to a question, you can use the hand raising functionality when it's asked out loud. If you click on the attendees menu, you should see your name, and next to it should be a hand symbol, and clicking on that sends us a notice that you'd like to speak. ESI staff will recognize you and unmute you so that you can actually give us that clarification if it's needed. But feel free to type in questions anytime throughout the presentation. We are going to hold those questions until after our speaker completes her prepared slides. Since we have some folks that are not members of the ESI joining us on the line today, let's start with a brief explanation of who we are. ESI is a voluntary leadership program. It's part of the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. We are managed by the non-regulatory Environmental Assistance and Customer Service Division, which also contains the state's recycling office, the department's toll-free hotline, and the Air Quality Small Business Ombudsman, as well as our regional office managers and environmental assistance coordinators. So it's a lot of us who are not regulatory but provide various forms of assistance. The ESI started with 20 facilities back in 2002, so this is our 20th anniversary, and we've increased that to about 97 members at 200 facilities. So we've grown slowly and steadily over the last 20 years. When the program first began, only entities that were permitted by DEQ, which was then DENR, were allowed to join, but we relaxed that requirement, and today any organization can join whether they are permitted or not, as long as they're willing to set and report on environmental goals. This allows entities that have improved their performance through pollution prevention and other means to participate, even if they no longer need an environmental permit to operate. We have a wide variety of members, including small business, agribusiness, service providers, industrial manufacturing facilities, as well as federal and state operations. ESI members has 3 levels, starting with our partners who commit to either establishing measurable environmental reduction goals or committing to establish a formal environmental management system, and we provide assistance with creating those systems. Members at the middle level have both a mature environmental management system and at least 2 measurable goals, so it has both of those requirements on it. Those are called rising stewards. And then our highest level, the environmental steward, requires not only measurable goals, but aggressive ones. In addition, their mature environmental management system must be integrated into their core business functions, and they must have environmental involvement with their communities. Our stewards also agree to mentor others in their environmental efforts, and you'll be hearing from DOMTAR today. They are one of our partners, but they've been a long-standing partner and have an environmental management system in place as well. So they are great examples. All members are required to report on progress annually towards their goals, and the 2 higher levels are reviewed for continued conformance with our requirements every 5 years. ESI members are each assigned a coach who can assist with technical and compliance issues. We also work with multiple partners, both within DEQ and others, to provide assistance related to members' goals and help us to provide educational webinars, workshops, etc. Folks like the WRP that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. We have a series of training modules that we host annually on implementing and improving environmental management systems, and we also provide additional assistance with EMS, including document reviews, gap analysis, functionally equivalent assessments, and internal auditing assistance. The ESI is committed to providing a space where our members and others can network and share ideas in a variety of formats, including our annual conference, which will be in October this year. These environmental benchmarking sessions like today, our quarterly hazardous materials roundtables, our energy webinar series, and any other events that our members are interested in having us discuss. So let's get to the meat of today's presentation. So Diane Hardison will be presenting today. She is a native of South Carolina who graduated from NC State, go Pack, in 1987 and joined the environmental team that was then Weyerhaeuser, their integrated paper manufacturing facility in Plymouth, North Carolina in '88. She became the environmental manager for the facility in 2006 and helped transition it to Domtar Paper Company in 2007. Diane took on further her current role of Environmental Health and Safety Manager for the DOMTAR-PLYMOUTH facility in 2019. She currently serves on the NCMA Board of Directors and the Southern Regional Planning Committee of the National Council for Air and Stream Improvement. And Diane and her husband Ken reside in Williamston, North Carolina, where they have lived for over 30 years, raised their children, and are now enjoying their grandchildren. And she mentioned that she's retiring in the next year, so she'll get to enjoy those grandkids even more. So welcome, Diane. I am going to switch presenters so that you can share your screen. So give me just a sec. All right.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
All right, I'm going to move my screen over.
Looks good.
And can everyone see? You probably see this control panel.
We don't actually can't see the control panel. You're good.
So good morning. Understand you can hear me and you can see the title slide, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it is certainly a privilege to be able to share with this group today in the ESI family. We have enjoyed being a part of that group over the many years. It's been very helpful in the networking of what we do. We thank you for joining us today and hope that you'll find maybe a little something interesting here in what we have to share. We want to highlight a couple of our material reuse programs here at the DOMTAR facility in Plymouth, North Carolina. And if we can get the slide to advance, there we go. So let's just start out with who we are as a company and here in Plymouth. So our facility in Plymouth, North Carolina is a pulp and paper, it's just a fluff pulp facility. We transitioned to that as DOMTAR in 2010. We make the absorbent core of hygiene products, mainly baby diapers and adult diapers. This product is sold all over the world. We're also an important part of our local community and the forest products industry. You will see a picture of us here in the lower left. This is a group of our mill folk on a service project day out in the town of Plymouth on the waterfront as we were cleaning the boardwalk and recoating that boardwalk one day. You'll see a picture here of a lighthouse built with rolls of pulp. That's how we sell our product out the door, it's in rolls. Certainly the Hatteras Lighthouse is iconic for Eastern North Carolina, and our pulp is also called lighthouse pulp. So if you're not familiar with the landscape in Eastern North Carolina, Plymouth sits on the banks of the Roanoke River. Our mill is about 8 river miles upstream of the Albemarle Sound. I've tried to give you an aerial here of what we look like from space. It roughly etched in our property boundary here along the Roanoke River. There's a bit in the river here, and all of that is DOMTAR. Our full land area here is about 4,400 acres. The industrial footprint is about 2,500 acres here. To give you a little overview of our operation, our annual production capacity is around 390,000 tons of air dry metric fluff pulp. We directly employ about 330 employees. We indirectly impact thousands of jobs in the area, from the suppliers to the businesses and those that ship and our product out. Our estimated regional economic impact is around 667 million. Our process here at the facility contains what we would consider typical operating areas for our industry. We have a wood yard where our raw material is brought in, the logs, and we use every portion of the log. Nothing is wasted. We treat raw river water to use in our process. We generate our own electricity and steam to operate our processes here, so we're largely self-sufficient for that with green energy that comes from the bark on the log and the lignin, or the glue that's in the log that holds the fibers together. We extract that out. We also burn that and generate steam and electricity. So we have biomass boilers on site. We have a chemical recovery process. So the whole craft process for making our product is a cyclic process, and the chemical is recovered. It's naturally a recycling process. Our chip cooking, where we break down the chip remove the glue out of it because we want the fiber to make the fluff. The drying of the pulp on the machine. We have an on-site wastewater treatment system. And all the rainwater that falls on that industrial footprint you saw on the previous slide does flow to our wastewater treatment system. And of course, packaging, warehousing, and shipping on site. As I've already mentioned, the size of our site, about 4,400 acres on the banks of the Roanoke River, and about 2,500 acres of that is the industrial footprint. We do operate on site a fully permitted Subtitle D landfill with double-lined leachate collection back to our wastewater treatment system. And you'll see that featured a little bit further on in our presentation. We generate what we consider typical residuals for our industry, wood handling residuals, and that can all be fired in our biomass boiler. If it cannot be, we have a wood reclaim process otherwise. Boiler ash, grits and dregs, which are byproducts of the chemical recovery process, lime and lime mud, and wastewater solids that are dredged out of our wastewater treatment system. So when we think historically about the challenges of managing our manufacturing residuals, what would be the traditional method for doing that would certainly be landfilling. And we've shown you, we have an aerial slide here, insert picture of our number 2 and our number 3 landfill. Number 2 is capped and closed, and number 3 is active. Historically, before we started our major material reuse programs, we would dispose of about 200 wet tons of waste a day to be covered in a landfill. The challenges with that are capital cost of building a new landfill cell about every 5 years, the maintenance and operating cost associated with that, the space demands in a landfill, the upkeep from a regulatory standpoint with the permitting, the monitoring, the reporting that goes on with that. And for the majority of the years that this facility has existed here in Eastern North Carolina, there just were not any other options for cost-effective reuse of the residuals that we produced. Recycling cost money. But thankfully, we experienced some game changers, which enabled us and opened the doors for us to pursue some new opportunities. So one of those was eliminating coal consumption completely at our facility, and that was done around 2010. So we produce no more coal ash, only wood ash from our biomass boilers. Also, discovering an innovative and an accessible material handling resource. We went out searching, and people were also searching for us, and we met up, and we'll talk about that in a second. And that has been a wonderful partnership. The process of doing that is also involves applying soil science, engaging our regional farmers, establishing a method to recover recycling cost, which is how we began our process with our largest material reuse program. But perhaps one of the more delicate opportunities we had was convincing our management here to try something different. And once we turned that corner, we were racing to do a better job at reclaiming residuals. So how did we start our process for beneficial reuse? As I mentioned before, we engaged a resource that applies soil science and ingenuity and material handling expertise to beneficial reuse efforts with manufacturing residuals. That company is actually called ARM, for Advanced Residuals Management. We tested our mill residuals for over a year to verify that they were viable for pursuing this project. We utilized our state agricultural lab in that process. We determined our target reuse opportunity and the product recipe that we would be blending and making. We named it. We refer to it as K-lime. The K stands for the potassium component that's in this product as a fertilizer. We have registered it with the Department of Agriculture. We developed an on-site management plan for the safe and compliant operation of the program. We developed a financial plan to recover some of the program cost. And this is how we began. The cost of the program is based on what we produce. And the cost to the farmers, we developed a payment plan with our farmers that largely aligns with the season and the growing season here in Eastern North Carolina, and originally established credit back to the company. There was a lot of marketing effort up front to reach out to the farmers. We worked with local Ag Extension Service, Farm Bureau, one-on-one with farmers. We now have a very good customer base, and we're not having to do nearly as much marketing now. Our product is in demand as a good fertilizer to the farmers in Eastern North Carolina. So K-Lime was officially introduced in the fall of 2013. As I said, it is preferred by regional farmers over commercial fertilizers. There continues to be a strong demand for the product. It provides liming value along with nitrogen, potassium, and organic matter. It has reduced our disposal for waste to be covered by more than 95% since 2013. It's enabled the mill's landfill site to be extended and our capital cost associated with new cell construction to be deferred by about 30 years. So that's a huge cost savings right there. The K-Lime project is an award-winning effort which has received praise from our customers, environmental stakeholders, while achieving our company's sustainability goals. We also have an offshoot of that. We use the term K-Lime the most, but we also have a product called D-Lime. When our potassium, it has a lesser concentration in the mix, we call that D. That stands for DOMTAR. We invented that, and our ARM invented that in 2017. It helps us move even more of our residuals. This whole program is a star feature in our educational outreach activities to the local schools and colleges, which since the pandemic, we have had so much less of that. That used to be a normal occurrence for us to have local schools and community colleges on site doing field studies and lab days and looking at our material reuse and our environmental systems. We haven't had that really since 2019 because of the pandemic. So here's some pictures just to give you an idea of what some of the elements look like in the K and D-Lime process. Here is a loader loading a spreader with the product out at a farmer's field. And here is the spreader spreading it out on the farmer's field. This is a truck conveying the product from our facility to the farmer's field. And here's a happy farmer standing in the middle of his award-winning soybean field on which he applied K-Lime. So there's some other considerations in establishing a program like this that might be worth mentioning if you were considering doing something like this for your facility. Develop a quality assurance, quality control plan to remain accountable to buyers and to ensure there's no risk to the environment. This includes developing a safety data sheet for the product and good labels for the product. Continuously monitor the product to ensure its quality and its safety. Work with applicable regulatory agencies to ensure the staging of your program is appropriately covered in any air permits. Register the product with the state agricultural agency. Clear any air permitting concerns for use of fuel-fired screens or other equipment that may be involved in the product, which we have done. The North Carolina Department of Air Quality required that we demonstrate our emissions were insignificant. We did that, and we do include their emissions in our air emissions inventory every year. And as a best practice, It's not required, but we have the ability to do this here. We have staged the operation in cells 3 and 4 of our number 3 landfill, so that all rainwater runoff is collected in the leachate system and carried back to our wastewater treatment system. So some other shots of the operation here on site. This is landfill number 2, capped and closed. This is active landfill number 3. We are disposing of waste and covering waste in cell 2. Cell 1 is now covered, capped and covered. This was pre start of our material reuse program. Since we began covering waste in cell 2, we have not had to enter into another cell. We constructed cells 3 and 4 to the landfill. They are permitted, but we have not put waste in these landfill, in these cells of the landfill. This is only for staging of our D and K lime operation. You can see a little closer up view here of the screen, of the long reach here. So some other considerations, and with a program like this, be flexible. Working with our farmers, they have ups and downs, just like our industry has ups and downs, and working with our farmers to help them has continued to enable the program to advance. We try to be flexible with the farmers. When they need us, we apply. When they need us to apply, we don't. We hold. When they don't want us to apply, depends on where they are in the growing cycle and what they're growing on their land. We pay attention to the crop prices because it correlates directly to the financial health of the farmers, and pay attention to the price of commodities because it's always changing, and so are the nutrient prices. We may need to adjust our rates according to payment terms. The characteristics of our byproducts that come out of our process also fluctuates. So ARM has developed several recipes depending on what the characteristics are and the concentrations of the different components of the residuals, so that we're giving the farmer a quality product. We monitor our space utilization in the landfill. This was a learning for us when we significantly reduced the waste that we were covering, and the waste that then went into the landfill was less dense because we weren't covering ash and grits and dregs and lime mud and wastewater solids. We lost utilization, and so that was a learning for us to go back and look at how we're operating our landfill, the equipment we're using in the landfill, the compaction, the weight that we needed, the techniques we needed to implement to make sure we're still getting good space utilization in the landfill. So that was a summary of our largest material reuse program here, our K-lime operation, and I may have not spoken, it was on a slide. We apply that fertilizer to any crop that is grown in eastern North Carolina. That can be corn, soybean, peanuts, sage, the canola oil plant, whatever the farmers are using in this area, the product is safe to use there. So we'd like to just also share another material reuse program we've started here more recently. As they say, I can't think of the quote now, is we had a need, so it opened the door for us to think outside the box of what can we do to not generate a large quantity of waste during the outage of one of our major pieces of equipment, and that was the kiln in the 2020 project. We had a large job to do on the kiln. It was going to be down for 36 days. Our lime kiln is a part of our chemical recovery process. It processes lime, which is lime mud, into dry lime CaO, which is a catalyst for converting the chemical back, the cooking chemical that we use in digesting the chip. And that's just a cyclic process. But as we were going to take the kiln down, we were going to have to remove the lime, and any lime mud generated was going to have to be wasted. That was a tremendous amount. We were estimating it could be as much as 141,000 cubic feet that would have to be disposed of in the landfill. To give you a comparison, we're operating at about 10,000 cubic feet per year, which equates to about 2,000 tons a year right now into the landfill. So we started looking for options. What can we do not to have to dispose of that as waste? It was too much also to blend into our K and our D-line products. And we did reach out to other resources in the area to see if there was another way to utilize it, whether in concrete or asphalt, any number of ways. And we did not, we were unsuccessful to find any options there. So we decided to store the lime and attempt to reclaim it back to our process over time. We were estimating it would take about 2.5 years to do that. We considered the need that we would need to keep it clean and dry. And at that time, we did have available to us an open building that was not being used, a large warehouse. So as it turned out, we ended up storing about 86,000 cubic feet in there, and we have begun reclaiming it. We did not have a process in place where this could be easily reclaimed back to the lime mud process. So we had to put that in place. And it ended up being a lot simpler than maybe we first thought. We just implemented simple agricultural elements, 125-foot conveyor, covered conveyor that fed into a vibrating funneled hopper. We did acquire DAQ approval to construct this and put it in place and use it. It is an insignificant source of particulate matter. We transfer the lime mud from the storage location to the hopper via a front end loader. And we're estimating actually that this is offsetting about 200 tons a month of makeup lime that we would be purchasing. So now that we have this lime stored from this large outage, we're blending that back in and not having to make up fresh lime by purchasing it. We have found that this works best when the lime stays dry and clean. So here's some pictures of the storehouse, the warehouse where we stored the lime, both inside and outside looking in. The hopper and the conveyor going into the lime mud storage tank. This is just another view looking at the hopper. It's not fancy, but it works. And then, so that we're sharing two of our material use programs here. I would say the two largest ones we have. We have other more traditional recycling programs like for wood waste, yard cleanup, white office waste, plastics, e-waste, and that sort of thing ongoing as well. We're concluding here with just some neat pictures of our wildlife community on our plant site. Our plant site is a sanctuary for wildlife. All of these pictures are common. None of them are uncommon. Our bear, the bear love our landfill. The bear love the dumpsters in the plant site, which poses a challenge for us sometimes. We do have one mama bear that lives on our property that it's not uncommon for her to have triplets. We have more waterfowl than we can count out in our wastewater treatment system. A very healthy deer population. They know they're safe on our plant site. Bobcat, geese. We have resident geese. They come, they love it, they stay. That can present aesthetic issues if you're walking out your back door of your office. So you just have to keep that in mind. But we do enjoy our wildlife on site. And so with that, here's a picture of the sunset setting over the Roanoke River and the Plymouth facility and my contact information. And that's the last slide for the presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, Diane. So I just want to remind everybody, you can type your questions in that question box over on the right in your webinar panel. Davey, do we have any questions yet?
We don't have any questions yet.
Okay. Well, I'll give you guys a few minutes to keep typing there. So Diane, what kind of base did you start with? I mean, when you started the whole landfill recovery, where did that idea come from?
We knew that wood ash is a good soil amendment back from our warehouser days. And we knew that our causticizing residuals had liming properties. And I'll have to say, we didn't necessarily go out looking. We were already to find the company that we ended up partnering with. We were already a partner with ESI and listening to what other facilities were doing, some of the contacts through that. I think we got on some mailing lists, or our contact information got out, and we were contacted. And I'll have to say, we in our roles with our jobs, we get a lot of calls from consultants, vendors, suppliers, and we don't always want to take the call, but you never know when you're going to discover a gold nugget. And so it pays to take the call. And that's really how we met up with ARM. And they brought to the table what it took for us to make it happen. The engagement of soil scientists, the connection with NC State, our ag extension agents here, working with the farmers, and stepping through it in a cautious and methodical manner to really study it for a while up front to ensure that we had residuals that could be blended and that this would work.
That's great.
Well, we do have a couple of questions now. Meredith Wright asked, I wasn't quick enough while taking notes, my apologies, but please advise what ARM or ARM stands for again. Thank you and great information.
Advanced Residuals Management.
Okay, excellent. And Tracy Campbell asks, what were the permit challenges?
Honestly, ARM helped walk us through that because they own this product, and worked with our Division of Waste Management and the Department of Agriculture in North Carolina to put together, to register the product, to get approval for the product and the QA/QC plan. Oh, now that's from a solid waste perspective. From an air permitting perspective, I don't know that I would call it a challenge, but it is an element you need to consider if you're doing something like this. We did engage our Division of Air Quality on the DOMTAR side to make, because the operation is staged on our plant site, to make sure we had covered anything from an air permitting standpoint. As it turns out, the process is insignificant from an air permitting standpoint, but we have that documented and recorded, and we also have that the process listed in our air emissions inventory.
Okay, excellent. Tracy asked a follow-up question. Any other on-site recycling programs?
Yes, some of our more traditional recycling programs, white office waste, plastics. We regenerate quite a number of plastics just from the plastic wrapping process off the machine for the rolls. So that's a large stream that goes out that is recycled. Cardboard, plastic bottles goes through another way. We try to discourage the use of drinking water in purchased plastic bottles, but it still occurs. So we recycle those. Aluminum cans, metal. We do recycle metal on a large scale with a large recycler.
Okay. Excellent. Danny Hill asked, what recommendations do you have for brainstorming solutions to recovering waste materials? What are some key points that you brought to your solution? And you did reach out to other, or did you reach out to other sources for ideas and came up with a simple solution for the lime mud, which I think other companies could learn from?
Wow. Okay, I got brainstorming ideas.
Yeah. So what recommendations do you have for brainstorming solutions to recovering waste materials? We'll start with that one.
So perhaps other companies do something similar that we do. We network within ourselves, within DOMTAR, all of the DOMTAR facilities in the U.S. and Canada. We intentionally share with one another every month, and then as needed otherwise. And there's a lot of opportunity to learn best practices and new ideas through that networking. Also, our industry is well supported through NCASI, the National Council for Air and Stream Improvement, and TAPI, and trade organizations like in North Carolina, the NCMA, North Carolina Manufacturing Alliance, which those are wonderful networking opportunities as well, to get ideas of what other businesses and industry manufacturers are doing to help manage residuals, recycle, reclaim. So those are some recommendations right there. Did that answer the question?
I think so. I think it also kind of goes to the second question, which was, like, are there key points that brought you to your solution?
Key points.
Yeah, what are some key points that brought you to your solution?
So I will say, we're going back to the genesis of our K-line process here. We did have other DOMTAR, or at least another DOMTAR facility that was conducting a type of material reuse, which helped us think about what we could do here. That was just another influence for us. And then key points for us was partnering with a resource that could bring the science, bring the marketing, bring the know-how, certified in material management to make it happen. Another key point for us is we had the space. We have the space to make this happen here. That's a blessing for our facility, our on-site landfill. The area that's actually approved for solid waste management is a huge tract on our property. Only a small portion of that has been developed and to actually as a engineered landfill. And we had the space to stage this inside the footprint of the landfill to manage stormwater runoff and leachate. And it's not directly in the middle of the mill, so the traffic in and out of the trucks is easy to manage as well. That was a key point for us. Management support is a key point. You still have to put it on paper. It still gets down to the bottom line. Recycling is wonderful, but if it's cost prohibitive, it is difficult for manufacturing to go there. So we had to develop this program so that it was not cost prohibitive, that in the long run, it saves us overall in capital cost and landfill operating cost. We're not building additional landfill cells. It is not as expensive for us to cover and manage the waste that is still waste that goes in cell 2 of our landfill. We had to put all that down on paper and show that and demonstrate that to get approval to move forward with the project.
Excellent. And I think the last portion of Danny's question is actually a comment, and it just says that you reached out to other sources for ideas and came up with what ended up being a simple solution for the lime mud that Danny thinks other companies could learn from. So we have another question from Kevin Martin. How do we as industries do a better job communicating how innovative we are in our environmental efforts. I think doing so may help increase benefits rather than relying too heavily on the energy industry alone to push for environmental innovation.
I'll take that.
That's
What I was
great.
gonna say is doing events like this where we're sharing, in this case, DOMTAR's, not only their action that they took, but the process that they did in order to get to that action. I think that really helps because we have a lot of folks who are involved in our program, and they're learning from each other all of the time. And, you know, it may not be something that directly applies to them, but hearing the process that someone else goes through definitely encourages that light bulb moment. You know, they're like, well, you know, we don't have lime or, you know, wood waste that we have to deal with, but, you know, just hearing that the creativity involved in finding another path. I think the more that we can encourage networking of this type, the better off we are in getting those pollution prevention, energy reduction, water reduction kind of efforts moving forward. Did you have something to add to that, Diane?
No, I think that's spot on.
Excellent. Karen Bellamy said that Angela and Diane, I also used ARM and they're a great company. And Daniel Curry asks, does the deferred landfill cost and the profit from the products offset the cost of the effort? Which I know you already touched on, if you want to speak more on that, Diane.
The cost benefit is over the long haul. It is not an immediate day by day, week by week, month by month, or even on an annual basis. It's over the long haul. And really the deferral of spending capital is the major savings. And then it's not really possible to put a value on the sustainability aspect for the customers. And that's very important to DOMTAR, as I'm sure it's very important to the other ES&I members. Sustainability is forefront in guiding us in our processes and continuing to have permission to operate and continuing to promote trust with our customers and our communities in which we live. So it's just the right thing to do. There's a better way to do it, and not disposing of it and covering it to be there for another 100 years. It's hard to put a price tag on that.
Excellent. And Wendy Worley asks, she says, great work on waste reduction. On a separate but related topic, are you utilizing recycled materials in your paper making process? If not, would DOMTAR consider adding this capacity in the future?
Utilizing recycled materials in the manufacture of our product has been a part of our history over time. We do. Our product now, Fluff, does include a certain percentage of recycled material. It is not post-consumer. Our products out the door have included post-consumer material in the past when we also produced fine paper and container board and corrugated medium. As a fluff manufacturer of a hygiene product that has to meet ISO 9000 world standards, we are not currently including post-consumer material. But any material that's made on site that does not meet our quality specifications that we would call cull is not wasted as it once was. It does not go in the landfill. It is repulped and blended back in for furnish to make the fluff pulp. Does that appropriately answer the question?
I believe so. Wendy, if not, please feel free. Oh, she says yes.
Okay.
Okay. Kim Thiel asks, I think you mentioned wood residuals as a stream. Do you have an outlet for this stream?
Yes. So part of our wood residuals is the wood ash coming out of the biomass boiler that's burning the bark off of the tree. The bark does not make good fluff. So that when we debark the log, that goes to our biomass boiler, and that's the fuel that we're using to make the steam and electricity. So that's that's one wood residual, is the bark off the tree. The wood ash that comes out of the boiler is chock full of micronutrients that goes into the K-Lime product. Other wood residuals on site, like pallets that cannot be reclaimed back to the pallet supplier or reused, that are not composite or coated wood, we are able to, we stockpile those, we grind those, we take the metal out because they're virgin material, they're covered in our air permit to go into our biomass boiler as part of that wood fuel with the bark on the tree.
Excellent. Karen Bellamy has a follow-up question. How many dry tons per acre do you apply to the fields? I know pH will change this some, but what's the average you target?
So I'm looking at one label for our K-Lime. Depending on the nutrient mix, depending on its the amount of calcium it has, and potassium and some other micronutrients, roughly 9,000 pounds of the material equals 1 ton of standard agricultural liming material. So dependent on the crop and what the farmer needs, different crops have a different demand for the nutrient. So it would be, we would apply at different ratios depending on the crop that he has ordered the product for.
Okay, and what % of wood ash are you permitted to use in the biomass boiler?
So our air permit is not in terms of tons, it's in BTUs. So our biomass boiler that fires the bark and the wood residuals is permitted for a maximum firing of 889 million BTUs per hour. It can, okay. That boiler has a steaming capacity of 1 million pounds of steam an hour.
Okay, excellent. So that's all the questions that we have for now. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to type them into the question box. Okay, so Karen followed up by saying, so you have no limit on the wood ash you can use?
The wood ash?
Yes.
No, I thought, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought she said what can be fired in the boiler. No, there's no limit on the wood ash. So the wood ash is a direct result of however much wood we're firing in the biomass boiler.
Okay.
And then all of that, so if there's a limit on it, it would back all the way up to the air permit as far as what we're firing, the throughput of the boiler as required by the air permit.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any, so Angela, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you all for your engagement and the great questions that you asked. Thank you, Diane. It was a great presentation. You did wonderfully, even if you were nervous. And I appreciate everyone's attention today. When we close out the webinar, you will get a pop-up in your browser with a survey. So if you can please fill that out for us, it really helps us to know what kinds of things you're interested in, if you're interested in presenting yourself, or if there are topics that we can try and hunt down somebody who can speak to. We'd love to hear from you. It really helps us to make sure that we're giving you the information that you want. So with that, this is actually perfectly on time. We're doing well. So we're going to let you get back to your day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of the week. And we hope to see you at our next event. Thanks so much.